My name is Benjamin Pritchard and I'm the single sculler for Great Britain. I started life as any small Welshman dreaming of playing rugby, but I had a congenital cataract, so I had a surgery at the age of 5, which meant that I couldn't play rugby and I was not allowed to play any contact sport. So I did a bit of cross-country running, I did sailing, swimming, lifeguarding, triathlon and cycling, and I guess my first international vest was with sailing, and from there it kind of snowballed and I got the passion for competing and racing. And then I went on to represent Wales in triathlon, then represent Great Britain at age group level in triathlon, and then I had to make that decision of whether I went and worked full-time or became an athlete full-time, and the sensible Ben kicked in and I chose to work. So I worked in the City of London in an insurance firm in Lloyd's of London, but with that I couldn't train for 3 sports because my days were too busy. So I just picked my favourite one out of the 3, which was cycling, and I focused on that and then got to like an elite domestic level, and then had a crash and ultimately ended up in my wheelchair. The draw to rowing was when I got onto the boat, I was no longer in my wheelchair. I was in a boat which is very similar to boats that other people row. Of course, we've got floats to help us stabilise and I'm strapped in, but ultimately I wasn't in my wheelchair anymore. And it just felt a freedom. You know, my wheelchair gives me so much, but also it's a very stark reminder that I'm disabled. And when I was newly injured, I wasn't quite ready for that. And wheelchair basketball, wheelchair rugby, wheelchair tennis, you were always in a wheelchair. So you were transferring from one wheelchair to another. Whereas in rowing, I got out of my wheelchair. And the freedom that I found going up and down the water was just magic. And I see the 8 going past at Caversham and they're breezing through this headwind and I'm slogging away at like 4-minute pace, 5 per 500. Yeah, absolutely, I'd like some mates. But we did an interesting session back at British Rowing where I went on sliders with the PR2 double just to try and work on hand speed off the back turn. And it just didn't work because I've not been used to rowing with anyone. I've only ever rowed by myself. But yeah, when it's windy and wet and miserable, I'd 100% love to be with some other people just to get that kind of spur on. But I am the master of my fate. I've kind of always been into individual sports. I guess that's kind of my psyche. But I wouldn't say that I'm by myself. I'm very lucky that I've got a really good coach, physio and support network, not just at British Rowing or World Rowing level, but also at home. You know, my wife is my greatest psychologist, my greatest mental health prep, anything. My masseuse, she's actually a sports therapist, so I'm very lucky. Tokyo was probably the loneliest I felt. After my 5th place at Tokyo, where I didn't probably do as well as I wanted to do, and the rest of the team got medals, as in the Paralympic team got medals, I felt really lonely because I didn't share that success with them. Whilst I was immensely proud of what they did, I was still hurting for me, but then my family were there to pick up the pieces. I've always known that I wanted to be a father and wanted to have children. I know there are people out there that can't do that or have lost the ability to or may struggle to conceive. I didn't know whether I'd be able to conceive after my accident, but luckily we did. So she's a blessing, you know, and that's kind of how I look at it. I'm very privileged to have a daughter and all of those challenges that come with it. And I spoke to my youngest brother and he said to me, it doesn't matter where you come, because Eva's watching the TV and going, that's my dad. And that's kind of like, it gives me goosebumps talking about it, but that's kind of the motivation, right? And she's a blessing. We conceived her on the date of my anniversary of my accident, which was completely unknown. And I found out that my wife was pregnant when I got my first bronze medal in Czech Republic. So yeah, everything happens for a reason, and she's definitely a motivator for me. I would say that my 2 World Championship medals mean the most to me. One, because it's the first time that we've been back on the podium since, I want to say, 2016 Rio Games, when Tom Agar got the bronze. And obviously it was my first World Championships bronze, which is fantastic. And then last year I had 2 surgeries, the birth of Eva, and my life was just going in such an up and down fashion. I just didn't know where I was at. And I managed to get a bronze medal off 12 weeks of training. Yeah, I'm hoping that I'm going to be on a different step this year, or at least maintain my 3rd place. I think in a world where sports are kind of changing to be universally spread across the surface of the globe or more diverse, we're already kind of there. You know, if you look at rowing, the fact that we're integrated amongst the Olympic athletes, the fact that we train alongside our counterparts. Yes, could we do better? Of course, but we do still belong in this global movement of universality. And I think my biggest achievement in the sport of rowing is being part of that and being on the Athlete Commission at World Rowing. That was when I got voted on, I felt really proud, because there's a saying in Welsh rugby where you don't own a jersey, you look after it, and you want to put the jersey in a better place when you leave the sport. And hopefully I'm putting the British skull in a better place when I leave than when I picked it up.